Have you ever opened a door expecting to find something ordinary, only to step into a moment that rearranges the shape of your world? That's what happened to me one quiet night. A night that began like any other, with a mother's small ritual of love, and ended with a truth I never saw coming. The house was sunk in the deep hush that only appears after midnight. My steps were soft against the hardwood, the faint light from the bathroom guiding my way like a pale ribbon through the darkness. I was heading to my son's room to say goodnight, one of those gestures you think will last forever, even when your child grows tall enough to wave you away. It was supposed to be simple, tender, ordinary. When I turned the handle and eased the door open, my breath caught before the word goodnight could leave my lips. Sitting on the edge of the bed wasn't my son, Liam. It was Noah, his best friend since grade school. For a moment, I thought I'd stepped into the wrong room, that my sleepy mind had betrayed me. But no, there he was, his shape outlined by the glow of the bedside lamp, his gaze lifting to meet mine. The boy I remembered was gone. In his place sat someone else, older, steadier, with shadows carved where softness used to live. His voice came softly through the quiet. "Liam's asleep," he said, nodding toward the bundled figure under the blanket. His tone was polite, casual even, but there was something beneath it. A quiet composure, a kind of calm that unnerved me. I stood there too long, frozen by a current I couldn't name. When had he changed? His shoulders filled the space differently. His voice carried weight. The dark hair that used to flop over his forehead now looked deliberately tousled. Mature, intentional. "I thought you were Liam," I finally managed to say, my fingers tightening around the doorknob. He smiled faintly, an apologetic curve of his lips. "Sorry if I scared you." I should have stepped back, wished him good night, and closed the door. But instead I walked in. My hands found the edge of Liam's blanket, straightening it for no reason at all. A useless motion, a way to pretend that everything about this was still normal. I could feel Noah's eyes following me, not in the curious way of a boy looking at his friend's mom, but in the still, observant way of someone truly seeing you. "Long day?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual. He gave a small laugh, that deep kind that seems to warm the air around it. "Yeah," he said softly. "But this feels calm." I swallowed the tightness in my throat. He didn't mean it that way, did he? I turned toward the closet, pretending to look for an extra pillow just to have something to do. "That's what moms are for," I said, laughing quietly. "To make things feel a little like home." His smile dimmed, just slightly. "Not everyone's that lucky," he murmured. Something fragile inside me cracked. I didn't know what to say, so I reached for the only exit, the door. But before I could pull it shut, his hand brushed mine. Barely a touch. A whisper of contact. And yet, it was enough to make the room tilt. To set off a pulse that felt both impossible and alive. "Good night." "Noah," I whispered, pulling away before the moment could swallow us both. Hours later, lying in my own bed, I could still feel it. The warmth of his skin, the way his eyes had held mine, the question hanging between us that neither dared to voice. By morning, the house returned to its usual rhythm. Laughter over breakfast, toast crumbs on the counter, Liam and Noah teasing each other like brothers. But every time Noah's gaze met mine, it lingered a heartbeat too long. A reminder, a warning, a spark. When Liam mentioned he'd be staying late at the library that afternoon, something in me tightened. The house felt different when he was gone, too quiet, too aware of itself. I curled on the couch with a book, pretending to read. My mind a blur of memories I had no right to replay. Then came the knock, soft, hesitant. When I opened the door, there he was again. Noah, hands tucked into his pockets. Expression uncertain. "Sorry," he said, voice low. "Didn't mean to bother you." "It's fine," I replied, stepping aside. "Come in." He sat at the far end of the couch, careful, respectful. For a few minutes we talked about nothing, school, college plans, weekend soccer. But the air between us hummed with something unspoken. Then out of nowhere he asked, "Did I make you uncomfortable last night?" The truth tangled in my throat. I could have laughed it off, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. "No," I said quietly. "You didn't." His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time his eyes softened. "I've always thought you were amazing," he said, each word deliberate. Strong, kind, the kind of person who makes others feel safe. I didn't breathe for a moment. There was no mockery in his tone, no immaturity, just raw sincerity. Before I realized what I was doing, my hand reached for his. His fingers closed around mine gently, not claiming, not pressing, just holding. "You shouldn't," I whispered. "Maybe," he murmured, "but I can't pretend I don't." And in that stillness, I realized something I didn't want to face. I couldn't pretend either. When he leaned closer, the world slowed to a hush. The kiss that followed wasn't desperate or rushed. It was quiet, cautious, like both of us were asking for permission to exist inside that moment. It tasted of fear and longing, of years I'd spent convincing myself that part of me was gone. For a long time afterward, I sat in silence, every nerve alive with guilt and something dangerously close to hope. I could have stopped it there. I could have built walls again. But the loneliness I'd carried for years refused to be silent anymore. The days that followed blurred together. Morning routines, work, laughter in the kitchen. And beneath it all, the unspoken connection that pulsed like a secret heartbeat. Sometimes, when our eyes met, the world narrowed until it was only the two of us, suspended between what was right and what felt real. I hated myself for it, even as I longed for it. Then came the evening everything changed. Liam left for a group study session, and Noah lingered behind. We ended up on the porch, the twilight washing everything in gold. "This could ruin everything," I said, my voice breaking. "I know," he replied softly. "But maybe it could also mean something. Something true." He reached for my hand again, and this time, I didn't pull away. For the first time in years, I let myself feel seen, not as a mother, not as a caretaker, but as a woman who had spent too long pretending she didn't need to be touched by life again. Was it wrong? Maybe. Was it reckless? Absolutely. But it was real. In the weeks that followed, I began to see the world differently. Sharper, more alive, yet also heavy with consequence. Every laugh from Liam cut deeper. Every smile from Noah lingered longer. It was a constant dance between guilt and desire, between the life I'd built and the one I'd almost forgotten I was allowed to want. And then came the night when everything came crashing into focus. Liam found out, not from us, but from the way secrets have a way of breathing through cracks. The hurt in his eyes was unbearable. For a moment I saw the child he'd been, the boy who once asked me to chase away the monsters under his bed. Now I had become one. Noah tried to explain, his voice trembling, but Liam didn't stay to listen. The door slammed, and with it, the fragile illusion we'd all been living in shattered. After that, silence filled the house again, the kind that doesn't comfort but condemns. Noah left town for college soon after. We didn't speak again. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if he ever thinks about that summer, if it shaped him the way it reshaped me. Years later, I still remember that night. The way the light from the hallway spilled across the floor, the moment everything familiar became foreign. I've learned that love isn't always a clean, beautiful thing. Sometimes it's messy, painful, and unforgiving. But it's also what makes us human. Because when you find something, or someone, that reminds you you're still alive, you're faced with the hardest question of all. Do you walk away from it to protect what you have? Or do you risk everything to feel that spark again? And the truth I live with now is this. Sometimes it isn't about the choice you make, but the part of yourself that wakes up when you realize you still have one to make.